Hello, welcome to the Liberated Multitasker. Today I have 3 meals for you, but we're going to start off with a quick and easy jambalaya. We're going to preheat our oven to 425 degrees. Then I'm going to drizzle some olive oil on my sheet pan. Now I did get this recipe from Pinterest. I first saw it from Frugal Fit Mom. Now I have cut up here 12 ounces of sausage. I'm using a beef sausage that I've sliced up. I have 1 sliced onion. Next we're going to be adding 1 red bell pepper sliced. These I already had frozen, so I just pulled out what I needed. And we're going to use a Creole seasoning. I'm using 1 teaspoon of Joe Daddy's Creole seasoning. I'm just going to put my hands in there and mix it all up, toss it together, and then spread it out evenly on my sheet pan. I will link this recipe in the description notes below from Pinterest. I first was introduced to sheet pan meals from the YouTuber Frugal Fit Mom. So this is her recipe. I've done this sheet pan meal and 2 others that I use fairly frequently. And I have to say, I'm a huge fan of sheet pan meals. So you may see more from me in the future on this. This one has a couple of different steps. So we're going to put this in the oven for about 10 minutes. And then we'll pull it back out for phase 2. I'm going to add 2 bags of frozen riced cauliflower. So this will be a low-carb meal. I'm using 1 tablespoon of tomato paste. And then I will be adding more Creole seasoning. I'm adding another teaspoon of Joe Daddy's Creole seasoning. I'll be using my wooden spoon to stir all this up again and then spread it back out evenly on my pan. And this time when we put it back in the oven, we will bake it for 20 minutes. And as soon as this comes out of the oven, we'll be ready for step 3. So the recipe calls for 1 bag of shrimp. I'll be adding 2. The shrimp I'm using is already cooked. All I had to do was cut the tails off and then add them to the top of the pan. Now they're still a little frozen, so I'm pulling them apart. But this won't take that long. Now there are several sheet pan recipes that do not have so many steps. And I have 1 or 2 that I'll probably be sharing with you in the future that is pretty much you put them in the oven and when you pull it out it's done. So stay tuned and I will share more with you in the future. We're just about done with placing the shrimp, so next we'll be adding the salt and pepper. You know, there are even a couple of crock pot recipes I've done in the past that I think would be great sheet pan meals. Next we'll be adding some butter. I have some pats of butter to spread on top. And then I'll be taking my wooden spoon and mixing this all up together and spreading it back out again before we put it back in the oven. Next, we'll be putting it back in the oven for the last time for 5 minutes. And then once we pull it back out, we'll have 1 more ingredient to add and then it will be ready to serve. That ingredient is lemon juice. Now fresh lemons is always best. However, we don't always have them on hand. So I will be using this Santa Cruz organic lemon juice that I got from Azure Standard. It's a little expensive, but it is so good. I'm using about 1 to 2 tablespoons. I'm just sprinkling over the top. Now it's ready to serve. I hope you try this recipe. It looks and tastes delicious. Now, what are we doing next? Have you ever wondered what you should do with leftover spaghetti? This is excellent. It tastes so good and is so quick and easy. So here, I have some leftover spaghetti. It's not a lot, but it's enough for this next dish. So I'll begin by heating this up in the cast iron pan and adding some cream cheese. Now, since I don't have a lot of leftover spaghetti, I'm only going to add about 4 ounces. I'm going to cut it up in cubes and sprinkle it over the top and mix it in and let it melt. If I had more leftover spaghetti, I would probably use the entire 8-ounce package. This is so delicious that I find that I make a larger batch of spaghetti simply so I can make this dish. You just want to stir this up until the cream cheese is melted and well incorporated into your leftover spaghetti. And I prefer to use a cast iron pan because after our next ingredient, all I have to do is put it in the oven and let it bake. Not long at all. So it looks like it's good melted. So next we're going to add some cheese. Just going to sprinkle that on top. Cut the stove top off, and I already have my oven preheating to 350 degrees. There are other great ideas of what to do with leftover spaghetti, but this is our go-to. And I have to say, I like it even better than just regular spaghetti. So you're just putting it in the oven long enough for the cheese to melt, and then it's ready to eat. So I hope this is something you'll try. Let me know what you think. Now for our third meal. We're going to be using our crock pot. And this is going to be my secret ingredient. It's roast broth. Anytime I cook a roast or beef tips, I save the leftover broth and freeze it. And I use it the next time I cook a roast or beef tips. This just adds so much more flavor when we use our leftover broth. Now I'm going to be adding 1 packet of Lipton onion soup mix. And we're just going to mix this all together. Next thing we'll do is season our meat, whether it's roast or beef tips. So today I'm using beef tips. I cook my roast the exact same way. This is about 2 pounds of meat, and I'm going to be seasoning it with steak and rib seasoning. We get this at our local grocery store, and it's one of our favorites. So I'm just going to mix this up well. Make sure everything is good and covered with our seasoning. And then we'll add it to our crock pot. Now when I cook a roast, I cook it on low for about 10 hours. When you're doing beef tips, you probably only need to cook it on low for 4 to 6 hours. I actually did this for about 8 hours, and it was a little bit too long. I hope you've enjoyed this video. Please like, share, and subscribe. And let me know if you decide to try any of these recipes.